Dr. Kälin, I'd like to start the discussion with you. How can sovereign states without natural resources raise capital in a manner that creates societal values and economic opportunity? And also, how can states explore new opportunities for growth in an increasingly globalized and an increasingly unequal world?
Thank you very much. It's a long question. With all of them, 2 or 3 questions in there. First of all, I think today we want to talk about or name this phenomenon that we pioneered in maybe a slightly new and compact way, which we call sovereign equity instead of sovereign debt. I think we have worldwide a debt problem in most countries. I think there are 4 states in the world that don't have sovereign debt. All other states have various degrees of debt. And you all know what we do, what we pioneered with investment migration. We have some representatives of some of the leading countries here, and including from Antigua and Barbuda, Malta, 2 countries we work with very closely, who have successfully implemented programs to get rid of the issues of the past of basically financing increasing burden for the state with debt, in other means, attracting foreign direct investment in a smart way through investment migration, and thereby actually reducing debt in many cases. We have had success stories in countries that were able to halve their foreign debt. And we like to think and call this sovereign equity. So instead of increasing debt, you actually create like equity partners with new citizens or new residents who are willing to invest in countries, to contribute to countries, and of course always provided you do the proper due diligence on these people. That's a clear precondition. We shouldn't even talk about that, it's very clear. Provided that it creates really a win-win-win situation for countries, local population, all stakeholders involved. And this is what we do. This is what I see much more in the future happening. And if you look at the facts worldwide, actually there are every year several states that introduce new programs like this to what I would call largely replace sovereign debt with sovereign equity in the future. That's what we like to see. That's our vision for the future.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kälin. What challenges does a state like Antigua and Barbuda face in today's globalized world? And what role do investment migration programs have to play? And what does the future hold?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. When I heard about the concept of sovereign equity, it sounded very foreign to me. It sounded as though there was this concept of individuals or companies investing equity in the government, and I was trying to figure out how would they achieve it. But I think the idea of Chris Kälin, that the CIP or immigration investment individuals or residents or citizens of that matter, that their contributions could be seen as equity investment in a nation state. For example, many of our countries in the Caribbean, we operate development funds in which we take these equity investments from individuals and confer citizenship on the individuals. And many of the countries in the Caribbean have been able to reduce their debt. In fact, prior to probably about 10 years ago, every single country in the Caribbean that has a CIP program would have had a very large debt overhang. And what we've seen now is a reduction now systematically in the debt to GDP as these countries utilize some of their immigration investment proceeds to reduce debt. So I think it's rather a novel concept of sovereign equity compared to sovereign debt. Now, Antigua and Barbuda, and certainly many other countries in the Caribbean, we have a number of challenges. We are middle-income countries, so generally speaking, we do not have access to cheap concessional financing. And the fact too that most of the countries had a very large debt overhang, they did not have much borrowing capacity. And in addition to that, not having well-developed capital markets and the fact that they're small in size, it meant that capital was very expensive and still is very expensive. So theoretically, countries in the Caribbean were paying interest rates between 7 and 8%, in many instances up to 10%. So you find that that created a problem in terms of the cost of money and would have helped to exacerbate the repayment or the, let's say, the debt service ratio for these countries. In addition, you know, we have other problems in terms of climate change and the various problems associated with small size, diseconomies of scale, and so on. But the issue, and perhaps the most pressing issue, is the issue of sovereign debt. So having the invest immigration program in these countries would have helped us to manage what was clearly one of the most significant threats to the development of these countries within the Caribbean. Now, insofar as the future is concerned, we have to make sure that we now look at the sustainability of these programs to make them more resilient. Clearly, these programs are under threat to some extent, but I have no doubt that as other countries, let's say, embark on new programs and they become more popular, then I believe that the embrace of these programs globally will grow even stronger, thereby mitigating the risk. And evidently, we have to continue to strengthen all of the due diligence procedures and to ensure that these programs become more resilient, because by having equity, clearly you're reducing interest costs, you're improving your liquidity as well, because as I said before, because of the high debt to GDP ratios, these countries are unable to borrow new capital, and in many instances, we're even not able to meet many of the obligations. And today, the funds that we would have gotten from these investor immigration programs would have helped to meet our obligations. So I would say, good future for CIPs. However, we have to remain vigilant and ensure that they become far more resilient.
Sovereign equity is both a new and a self-evident concept. What has the impact of investment migration been in Malta in this regard? And also, how can states work to ensure that investment migration programs are prudently and responsibly managed?
Well, Malta is an EU member, and like any other country, it's been making annual deficits in its fiscal budget for 30 years, and that accumulated its debt to over 73%, and still counting. And definitely in our plans, the government was elected about 6 years ago. We didn't have any of this program in it as a part and parcel of our plan. It was more about addressing the supply side weaknesses of the economy, reliance on oil, high unemployment, and relying on social benefits, and low female participation, many weaknesses. And our plan was to address them. And so when this program came, it was more managed from the Office of the Prime Minister rather than the Minister of Finance. My argument was that, well, you know, it's welcome, but I can't rely on it. In other words, I have to show, whether it's the European Union or the world at large, that the government is in control of its expenditure, and then make a balance, or ideally turn the deficit into a surplus. That was essential. However, we can't ignore when and we have no idea how successful the program is going to be, the investment. But many countries had, in one way or the other, sort of rewarded investors by giving them a citizenship under one go. And this was, you know, becoming. But it was essential that the inflow of revenue from this program would not go and make the public sector reliant on further expenditure. That was essential. So what we agreed is that 30% of the revenues would really go into the budget, but 70% would go into the creation of a wealth fund. And all this revenue were obviously contributing to a lower and lower debt. So we are very happy indeed that both through efforts which we are doing on the fiscal side and the success of the program, together the debt, the national debt from 73% is now in the 45% zone. That gives the finance minister and whoever is managing the economy, a lot of fiscal space and room for maneuver. It's very, very important. And that is the equity part. So definitely, I would recommend it. However, one should not rely completely on it. And one way I convinced, because one would say, you have a surplus, wink wink is the IIP, or yes, Malta's doing well, wink wink is the IIP. True, it is contributing towards lower debt, but it is not reliant on it. And the way we do that is that the Malta government's target is that the surplus net of these revenues from that program will still remain in balance. It will be a surplus. So there's no necessary to wink. and the government has shown that it can live within its means, because it all goes together. And if you have a positive government and it's good, strong governance, then it will invest those monies properly, which we are in this wealth fund. And it also attracts the people. The people who are getting the citizenship are global people, successful people, highly successful people. And if you only listen to them, and if you only talk to them, and if you're ready to work with them, you'll turn the economy really upside down. And that's why Malta is called the blockchain island now. What did it do? Simply by attracting these people and talking to them and devising a regulatory framework. At the moment, they are not regulated anywhere. And they don't want to remain like cowboys. They want to be regulated in a proper way. And they know that big countries, because they are set in their ways in the old regime, when they are faced with disruptive technology, they are lost. Honestly, they are lost. It will take them 3, 4, 5 years to come around to build a regulatory framework which is appropriate for this technology. But Malta did it in a few months. The regulatory authority, the lawyers, and the gurus set together, came up with something which is liked by the world. And when you call a world summit, and the first time 4,000 turn up, and then the second time 9,000 turn up, then you must be doing something good. And this is what's happening. And Malta now is set, just like successfully we have created a cluster, the biggest cluster of iGaming companies, online gaming companies in Malta, coming from Sweden, from all over the world. Again, because of an appropriate authority and regulatory framework, we hope that we can do the same. It's a big business. We could tell it's going to change the world, and it would be foolish not to get into it at an early stage. So, thanks to the RIP, we have managed to attract those kind of people. We got the revenue, we lowered the debts, but as I said, it has to be integrated in a plan where there should be good fiscal governance above all.
Very impressive. Thank you very much. Investment migration programs are often created by smaller countries whose geography and lack of natural resources limits their industrial and financial capacity. This is clearly not the case with Kazakhstan. Perhaps you could elaborate how Kazakhstan views investment migration and how it fits with its wider financial and industrial policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to echo to Minister of Finance of Malta also. So we have a slightly different approach. So first of all, small background of Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan, you know, that is very well known because we are rich of commodities, not only oil, but also other mining issues. So we have a sovereign wealth fund, more than $60 billion, which we invest in the global markets. So in these terms, the situation with economic development and with the budget in the country is very much sustainable. So we grew last 10-15 years by 6-7% per year in average. So, but I think that, so this is from one side. From the other side, the global competition has increased. So Kazakhstan has been successful to bring billions of dollars investment, but mostly to the commodities area. What we want is just also to diversify our economy, to be more sustainable in the future. So in these terms, I think even the resource-rich country also focusing to bring from one side investment, but from the other side we really need to increase the investor base. So and we consider it the role of the programs like investment residency or role of the migrants in the any economy is just to help to build new skills of particular country or the particular region. So this human skills is like building blocks. It's more, let's say, combination you would like to have. It's better to bring more talented people and, let's say, Minister mentioned, rich people who already prove their entrepreneurship spirit and have already the achievement. So the idea is just to create critical mass of the people who really would be interested, not just for direct, let's say, input to the program, like contribution for different type of, let's say, investment residency program, for example, combination of to invest to the local securities or to invest to the local real estate, but also to think about in the future creating the new businesses in the region. So this is, I think, the most important part. And in Kazakhstan, we decided that we have to have some pilot program, investment residency, which would be based on Astana International Financial Center. This is very much similar to my approach in Malta. So we created like cluster for financial services, but not only just the conventional financial services like capital markets or let's say asset management, but also for focusing for new disruptive technologies, many types of fintech, blockchain-enabled technologies, cybersecurity, RegTech. So the idea is to create this kind of pool of people who really wants to be regulated, and we have also the special world-class regulation authority with a special sandbox which is allowed to, let's say, to manage different type of risk. So again, based on this platform, which by the way, the first time among all the post-Soviet Union countries, based on English common law. So I think this is also like island of the where we have a common law jurisdiction, we have a rule of law, we have a dispute resolution authorities, which consists from the court and arbitration center, where we invite retired British judges, for example. So this is the area which would be interesting to investors to come, to participate in the particular business, maybe to think about how to structure their wealth, how to, let's say, work with different legislation opportunities in Astana. And one of these particular ingredients have to be residency status by investment. So I think that here we learn from it's a huge competition around the world. So it's more than around 100 programs. And I think that the Kazakhstan also wants to be part of this competition. Even there is a perception that we are rich enough and we don't need it. It's not like this. I think now everybody has to compete, everybody has to be in a good shape, and it's a competition every day. And the Kazakhstan wants to compete for investors, for brains, for skills, for talented and rich people as well.
Together with Henley Partners, you created the QNI, which stands for Henley Partners Kochenov Quality of Nationality Index. What are your methods and how might we apply these conclusions in the consideration of sovereign equity?
That's a big question again. But there are several assumptions behind the index, which I'm very happy to have courses with Chris, that actually go against a little bit what we assume behind all what was said in the panel. I think the only person I would agree with, besides you, of course, is Simon broadly, because most importantly, when we speak about citizenship, we presume that citizenship associates a person with a country. And what we see, in fact, in terms of residence, in terms of livelihood, this is not always the case. Not only because people don't take up residence where they are citizens of, but also because your citizenship is also a marker for all the states around the world that sends a message who you are and what you are worth. So your citizenship is not only about you in the country, your citizenship is about you in the world. So if you are associated with a bad country, And the majority of countries are bad countries. If you look at, if you basically compare the rights that citizens derive from whatever the citizenship status gives them, the majority of countries are not Switzerland. So then, your passport is your sign, it's your cross, which you bear all around the world, and the message for the absolute majority of the world population, 80% of the world population lives outside of the OECD countries, it's a negative message. So your citizenship is a liability rather than a bundle of rights. And then what we observe in the OECD world, in the developed world, as it were, is quite contrarian to what we assume about citizenship, because in the developed world we have deep going interpenetration between the statuses of citizenship and the territories of states. And I explain why. States conclude deep-going agreements on settlement, not only tourism, which means that if you buy into Malta, equity is a great word, you're in fact buying into the European Union. And even more, you're buying into the EEA. Even more, you're buying into Switzerland. So I don't know whether you keep statistics, but I wouldn't be surprised that the new Maltese, for some reason, would have chosen Zurich or Geneva. And Zurich and Geneva, of course, would be very thankful to Malta for that, rather than Valletta or St. Julian's Bay. And this is the world we live in. So we need to set aside this perception that our citizenship, A, is something that is always significant in terms of this intimate connection between a person and the country. It is about the world. It is about the world instead. And we need to forget about this bizarre correlation, which used to be true in the past, that your citizenship is about the territory of your state. It can be about the territory of 47 states, as the Maltese one. Even the Georgian Republic honors Maltese passport as a passport that allows someone to settle, which means that you simply migrate and you start living in Georgia, and you can open a business, and you can do whatever, and they benefit from you. So this is the growing trend. And this growing trend is something that we have to harness when we measure the quality of nationalities around the world. So obviously, a nationality that only gives you access, full access in terms of residence, employment, right to open companies, etc., to one powerful economy is something that is losing compared with the nationality of, however, a smaller state that gives you full access to a large number of economies which offer differentiated regulation of whatever might interest you. In this sense, comparing the US with Malta obviously gives Malta an interesting upper hand because however large the US economy, the Maltese offer access to a number of economies where a difference in regulation is something that matters. So we measure not only travel, not only tourism, but most importantly, the world which doesn't correspond to one state, one citizen paradigm. And the very last word, we shouldn't forget that many citizenships are compensatory, which means that if you belong to those 80% of the world, countries outside of the OECD, usually your citizenship is a liability, not a benefit for you, with small exceptions, then sometimes you actually love where you reside, and you love what you do, and your economy can be doing well with respect to Kazakhstan. But the Kazakhstani passport is too bad for you to live a respectable life. So of course you have to compensate. And there is now a rising trend in sociology of migration and the sociology of law that actually looks at how this works in practice. So what are the main countries that produce the citizenship willing to compensate? These are the rich countries which are actually doing very, very well. Israel, Brazil, the Russian Federation, Kazakhstan. And then those citizens usually will be among those, China, among those who will certainly take a flight to the US to make sure that their children are born there, not in Astana. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any further comments from the panel? Then I would hand over to Dr. Kälin, who will have the closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I just want to say I think we could go on for a little while. It's rather interesting, even from some of my colleagues here. But I just want to just say thanks for everyone for being here and making such a nice contribution. And many say that we are in the middle of a big trend. This whole investment migration industry, depends how you measure it, is well beyond 20 billion a year already. And there's no question about it. We have now worldwide about 100 countries that have legislation in place for investment migration programs. So either residence by investment or citizenship by investment. 100 countries. Of these 100, that's about half the world's countries have this in place. About 50 to 60 countries have what we would call active programs. Means programs that have certain volume. So the Netherlands, for instance, has an investment migration program, but hardly any applicants, because it's not well designed. So this wouldn't count. But there are probably about 50 to 60 that are fairly well designed, have a serious number of applications and a serious number of foreign direct investment coming into the country, sovereign equity coming into the country. And we see this rising actually every year on an almost monthly basis. So we foresee now there's more and more countries taking on this concept. And what I see here, and I think many of my colleagues share that, we're not in the middle of a trend. I think we're actually just at the beginning of a huge trend worldwide, where sovereign states really embrace this concept of sovereign equity. Thank you very much.